r/ProRevenge X stole my therapy dog, so I destroyed her life. The first thing I noticed when I walked into my empty apartment wasn't the missing furniture or the cleared-out closet. It was the silence. No clicking of claws on hardwood. No excited whimpering. No 100-pound German Shepherd mix bulldozing into my legs like he always did when I came through that door. "Rex?" I called out, my voice echoing off bare walls. "Come here, boy." Nothing. My duffel bag hit the floor with a thud that seemed to bounce around the hollow space forever. 12 months deployed in Eastern Europe, counting down the days until I could bury my face in Rex's fur and feel something close to normal again. The only thing that had kept me sane through the nightmares, the cold sweats, the way my heart still hammered every time a car backfired, knowing he'd be here waiting. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and dialed Sarah's number. Straight to voicemail. Same cheery message she'd had for 2 years. "Hey, it's Sarah. Leave me something good." Except 3 months ago, she blocked me on everything after our spectacular flame out of a breakup. The only reason I even tried calling was the sick hope that maybe she'd actually kept her word about watching Rex while I was gone. My second call was to my downstairs neighbor, Mrs. Chin. "Oh honey," she said, and I could hear the pity in her voice before she even finished. "I was wondering when you'd be back. That girl of yours came by with some men in suits about 2 months ago. They had paperwork and everything. Said there was some mistake about the dog's ownership papers." The phone creaked in my grip. "What kind of paperwork?" "Official-looking stuff. Said the dog was never legally yours to begin with." I felt terrible, but they had badges and documents and... "Marcus, I'm so sorry. I thought you knew." After Mrs. Chin hung up, I stood in the middle of my gutted apartment and tried to breathe like the VA counselor had taught me. 4 seconds in, hold for 4 seconds out. But the familiar tightness was already creeping up my chest, that suffocating weight that Rex could sense from across a room. Rex, who would nudge my hand during panic attacks before I even realized they were starting. Rex, who'd wake me from nightmares by pressing his full weight against my legs. Rex, who'd been specifically trained for combat PTSD and cost me 8 months of savings to get certified. Rex, who was mine. Legally, officially, undeniably mine. I fired up my laptop and went straight to Instagram. Sarah had unblocked me everywhere during the deployment, probably figured I couldn't do anything from 6,000 miles away. Big mistake. Her most recent post was from yesterday. A selfie of her and Rex on some hiking trail, both of them grinning at the camera. The caption made my blood turn to ice water. "Adventures with my rescue boy. Still can't believe someone abandoned this angel. Lucky me. #RescueDog, #NewBeginnings, #BlessedLife. 47 likes. Comments full of heart emojis and "OMG he's gorgeous" and "You're such a saint for rescuing him." I screenshot everything before she could delete it. Then I opened a fresh document and started typing. If Sarah wanted to play games with paperwork and legal technicalities, she'd picked the wrong veteran to mess with. I'd spent 12 months learning patience in a frozen foxhole, and I just found the perfect way to use it. Time to show her what a real rescue mission looked like. The first call I made was to Dr. Martinez at the VA. She'd been my therapist for 3 years and had signed off on Rex's certification paperwork personally. "Marcus, thank God you're back safe," she said when she picked up. "How are you adjusting to? They took Rex." The words came out flat, mechanical. "My ex-girlfriend. She somehow got legal paperwork saying he was never mine." The silence stretched long enough that I thought the call had dropped. "Then, that's impossible. I have your certification documents right here in my files. Rex was specifically trained and matched to your case profile. The paperwork trail is ironclad. Can you fax me everything? I need originals, training records, the works." "Of course, but Marcus, without Rex, how are you managing? Do you need me to prescribe something short-term while we sort this out?" I hung up before answering that question. The truth was I hadn't slept more than 2 hours straight since getting back. Every car horn sent me diving for cover. Yesterday, a construction worker dropped a metal pipe and I'd hit the deck so hard I scraped up both palms. While I waited for the fax, I did what I did best, reconnaissance. Sarah Whitmore, 26, paralegal at Whitmore and Associates. That last name wasn't a coincidence. Daddy's law firm, specializing in family law and estate planning. According to their website, managing partner Richard Whitmore had been practicing for 30 years and had extensive connections throughout the state's legal community. I dug deeper. Richard Whitmore served on the board of 3 different professional organizations. His wife Margaret was president of some charity foundation. Their law firm had handled 2 city council members' divorces and represented a county judge's daughter in a DUI case that mysteriously disappeared. Connected family. The kind that could make inconvenient problems vanish with a phone call. My laptop chimed with an email notification. The VA's fax system had forwarded Dr. Martinez's documents as PDFs. I opened the files and felt my jaw clench so hard my teeth ached. Rex's original training certification, dated 18 months ago. Signed by myself, Dr. Martinez, and the training facility director. Purchase receipt showing I'd paid $12,000 for specialized PTSD response training. Vet records with my name as owner. Insurance policy with Rex listed as my service animal. Everything legitimate. Everything legal. Everything Sarah would have needed to forge or manipulate to pull this off. I was screenshotting the documents when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Asterisk, heard you were back in town. Maybe it's time to move on. Some things are better left in the past. A friend, asterisk. I stared at the message until the screen went dark. A friend. Right. 20 minutes later, another text from a different number. Asterisk, Rex is happy in his new home. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Asterisk. My hands were shaking again, but not from panic this time. From rage. They were watching me, tracking my movements somehow. Probably figured they could intimidate me into backing down like I was some broken-down veteran who'd just roll over. They had no idea who they were dealing with. I opened a new browser window and started researching private investigators in the area. If the Whitmores wanted to play dirty, I'd show them what dirty really looked like. But first, I needed allies. People who understood that when someone steals a veteran service animal, it's not just theft, it's an attack on everything we'd fought to rebuild. I scrolled through my contacts until I found the number I was looking for. Jake Morrison, former Army Ranger, now worked in cybersecurity. We'd served 2 tours together and he owed me his life from a checkpoint incident in Kandahar. Time to call in some favors. Jake picked up on the second ring. Marcus fucking Rodriguez. Heard through the grapevine you were back stateside. How you holding up, brother? I need help, Jake. Someone stole Rex. The line went quiet except for the sound of typing in the background. Jake was always multitasking, always 3 screens deep in code or data analysis. Your therapy dog. Who the hell would? My ex Sarah Whitmore. Her family runs a law firm here, got connections everywhere. They forged paperwork somehow, made it look like the dog was never legally mine. Send me everything you've got on them. Names, addresses, business info. Give me 2 hours. While Jake worked his magic, I drove to the training facility where Rex had been certified. K9 Solutions sat on 10 acres outside town, surrounded by chain link and concrete obstacles. The owner, Tom Kowalski, was a former Marine who specialized in PTSD service animals. Tom's face darkened when I explained what happened. Son of a bitch, he muttered, pulling up files on his computer. I remember Rex. Smart as hell, bonded to you faster than any dog I trained. You're telling me some lawyer's daughter just waltzed in and claimed him? With official paperwork, apparently. That's impossible. Our certification process is bulletproof. We maintain duplicates of everything, purchase agreements, training logs, temperament evaluations. His fingers flew across the keyboard, then stopped. What the fuck? What? Someone accessed our system 3 months ago. Changed Rex's file, made it look like the purchase agreement was never finalized. Showed him as available for placement instead of completed certification. My stomach dropped. Can you trace who did it? The login shows it was me. Except I was in Florida that week visiting my daughter. Tom's face was turning red. Someone hacked my system and used my credentials to alter your dog's records. We spent the next hour documenting everything, printing backup files from Tom's personal computer, pulling security camera footage from the day someone had accessed the facility's network remotely. It was professional work, the kind that required serious tech skills or expensive help. My phone buzzed with a call from Jake. Got some interesting news about your girlfriend's family. Richard Whitmore isn't just well connected, he's dirty as hell. 3 complaints filed with the state bar in the last 5 years, all mysteriously dismissed. His firm's been laundering money through that charity foundation his wife runs. But here's the kicker, they're broke. What do you mean broke? I mean drowning in debt. The law firm owes $200,000 in back taxes. Richard's got a gambling problem he thinks nobody knows about. Lost his ass on sports betting, took out loans against the business to cover it. They've been robbing Peter to pay Paul for months. That changed everything. This wasn't just spite, this was desperation. Jake, I need you to dig deeper. Find everything. Already on it. But Marcus, be careful. Desperate people do stupid shit, especially when they've got connections in law enforcement. As if summoned by his warning, red and blue lights flashed in my rearview mirror as I drove home. I pulled over, hands visible on the steering wheel, and waited. The cop who approached my window was young, maybe 25, with the kind of swagger that screamed recent academy graduate. His nameplate read, Officer Bradley. License and registration, he said without preamble. I handed them over. What's the problem, officer? Got a report of suspicious activity. Someone matching your description was seen casing houses in the Whitmore neighborhood earlier today. I'd never been within 5 miles of the Whitmore house. I think there's been a mistake. Step out of the vehicle, sir. 20 minutes later, after a thorough search turned up nothing illegal, Officer Bradley handed back my documents with obvious disappointment. Stay away from Maple Heights, Mr. Rodriguez. Wouldn't want any misunderstandings. The message was crystal clear. The Whitmores had reach, and they weren't afraid to use it. But they'd just made a critical error. In the military, we had a saying, never escalate unless you're prepared for full-scale war. They weren't. But I was. I spent the next morning at the county courthouse, pulling every public record I could find on the Whitmore family. Property deeds, business licenses, court filings, anything that might give me ammunition. The clerk, a middle-aged woman named Janet, kept giving me sympathetic looks as I fed quarters into the copy machine. You doing genealogy research, honey? She asked during one of my trips to her desk. Something like that. I smiled and handed her another records request form. Just trying to piece together some family history. What I was actually piecing together was a pattern of corruption that went back years. Richard Whitmore's name appeared on dozens of cases that had been mysteriously dismissed or settled out of court. His charity foundation had received 3 grants from the city council in the past 2 years, all for vaguely defined community outreach programs. Most interesting was a malpractice suit from 2019 that had vanished from the court system entirely. A client named Patricia Valdez had accused Whitmore of mishandling her divorce settlement, causing her to lose custody of her children. The case file was sealed, but the initial complaint was still buried in the system. I was photographing documents with my phone when Jake called. Bad news, brother. That cybersecurity breach at the dog training place. It came from inside the courthouse network. My blood went cold. Someone with official access. Yeah, and they knew exactly what they were looking for. This wasn't some random hack, they targeted Rex's records specifically. Someone fed them the information they needed. I glanced around the courthouse lobby, suddenly aware that anyone here could be watching me. Can you trace it to a specific terminal? Working on it, but these government systems are locked down tight. Might take me a few days. Jake paused. Marcus, there's something else. I found 3 other service dogs that went missing in the past year. All veterans, all had their paperwork mysteriously invalidated before the dogs were relocated. The room seemed to tilt sideways. They've done this before. Looks like it. And get this, all 3 cases were handled by family court judges who've had legal work done by Whitmore and Associates. I'm trying to track where those dogs ended up, but the paperwork trails go cold real fast. I left the courthouse with my head spinning and a sick feeling in my stomach. This wasn't just about Sarah stealing my dog out of spite. This was organized, systematic. They were running some kind of operation, stealing service animals from veterans and covering their tracks through legal manipulation. My phone rang as I reached my car. Unknown number again. Stop digging, Rodriguez. The voice was electronically distorted, probably run through some kind of voice changer app. You're making people nervous. Good, I said. I'm just getting started. No, you're not. Check your email. The call ended. I opened my email app and felt my heart stop. The message contained a dozen photographs of me from the past 2 days. Walking into the VA office. Sitting in my car outside the training facility. Entering the courthouse this morning. The final photo was taken from inside my own apartment, showing me asleep on my couch last night. They'd been inside my home while I was sleeping. The accompanying text was short, *Rex isn't the only thing you can lose. Back off, or we'll show you just how much worse this can get, *. I sat in the courthouse parking lot, staring at that last photo, and felt something I hadn't experienced since my first firefight overseas. Not panic, that was familiar territory. This was cold, calculated fury. These people thought they could break into my home, steal my therapy animal, and threaten me into submission. They thought I was just another damaged veteran who'd crumble under pressure. They were about to learn the difference between broken and dangerous. I forwarded everything to Jake, then made another call. This one to Sergeant Major Patricia Williams, my former commanding officer who now worked at the Pentagon. Pat, it's Rodriguez. I need a favor. A big one. Pat listened without interruption as I laid out everything, the stolen dog, the forged paperwork, the systematic targeting of veteran service animals. When I finished, the silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. Jesus Christ, Marcus. Her voice carried that edge I remembered from combat briefings. How many other vets are we talking about? At least 3 confirmed cases, maybe more. Jake's still digging. I pulled up the photos they'd sent me. Pat, they broke into my apartment while I was sleeping. These people aren't just thieves, they're predators. Send me everything. I mean everything. I've got contacts at the Inspector General's office who handle military-related fraud cases. If these bastards are targeting veterans systematically. She didn't need to finish. We both knew what happened to people who made the military community their enemy. After ending the call, I drove straight to a hardware store and loaded up on security equipment. Cameras, motion sensors, reinforced door locks, enough gear to turn my apartment into a fortress. If they wanted to play surveillance games, I'd show them what real operational security looked like. While installing the cameras, my phone buzzed with a text from another unknown number. Your friend Jake Morrison should be more careful about his late-night drives home. My blood turned to ice. I immediately called Jake, but it went straight to voicemail. Then I tried his office number, no answer. According to my last text from him, he'd been working late at his cybersecurity firm, trying to trace the courthouse network breach. I was grabbing my keys when Jake finally called back. They tried to run me off Highway 9, he said without preamble. Black SUV with tinted windows. Came up behind me doing about 90, tried to force me into the guardrail. Are you hurt? Banged up, but I'm alive. Marcus, we're not dealing with small-time lawyers anymore. This is organized crime level shit. I could hear traffic in the background, he was still on the road somewhere. But they fucked up. I got partial plates before they peeled off, and my dash cam caught the whole thing. Where are you now? Driving to my ex-wife's place in Richmond. Figured I'd lay low there for a few days while I work remotely. Jake's voice hardened. But I've got good news. Remember that courthouse terminal I was tracing? Found it. The breach came from Judge Patricia Morrison's office computer. The name hit me like a freight train. Morrison. Any relation to you? Unfortunately, yeah. My piece of shit cousin Patricia. She's been on the family court bench for 8 years, handles most of the custody and animal ownership disputes in the county. Jake's laugh was bitter. Always knew she was crooked, but I never imagined she'd stoop to stealing service dogs from veterans. This was the break we needed. Jake, can you? Already on it. I'm pulling every case she's handled in the past 2 years, cross-referencing with the Whitmore firm's client list. If there's a pattern, I'll find it. But even as we made plans, I could feel the walls closing in. They'd escalated to physical intimidation, which meant we were getting close to something that could destroy them. It also meant they were getting desperate enough to take bigger risks. My new security cameras caught the first prowler at 3 a.m. A figure in dark clothing testing my windows, checking for unlocked entry points. When the motion-activated lights kicked on, they disappeared into shadows between buildings. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. Instead, I sat in my chair with all the lights off, watching the camera feeds and thinking about Rex. Wondering if he was scared, if he missed me, if he even understood why I'd abandoned him. The thought of him confused and waiting for me to come home was worse than any nightmare my PTSD had ever produced. By morning, I'd made my decision. If they wanted to play psychological warfare, I'd give them a masterclass in exactly what that looked like. The burner phone I'd bought the night before rang at exactly 6 a.m. I'd been expecting the call. You don't spend 12 years in the military without learning to read enemy patterns. You had a busy night, Rodriguez. Same electronically distorted voice as before. Testing security systems, making phone calls to Pentagon friends. Very impressive. I kept my voice level. Just making sure I can sleep safely in my own home. About that. We need to talk. Face to face. I'm listening. Riverside Park, by the old gazebo. 1 hour. Come alone, and maybe we can work something out that benefits everyone. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, weighing my options. It was obviously a trap. Question was, what kind? Intimidation. Physical confrontation. Or just gathering intelligence on how much I actually knew. I called Jake first. They want to meet. Don't do it, Marcus. These people just tried to turn me into roadkill. Which means they're getting sloppy. Desperate people make mistakes. I was already pulling on my jacket. Besides, I'm not going in blind. What do you need? Can you hack into the park's security camera system remotely? Does a bear shit in the woods? Give me 20 minutes. Next call was to my upstairs neighbor, Danny Reeves. Ex-Navy SEAL who worked private security now. We bonded over late-night PTSD episodes and shared understanding of what combat did to your sleep patterns. Danny, I need backup. Not direct involvement, just overwatch. Say when and where. Riverside Park at dawn was eerily quiet. Morning joggers wouldn't start showing up for another hour, which gave whoever wanted to meet me plenty of privacy for whatever they had planned. I positioned myself near the gazebo with clear sightlines in all directions, Danny hidden in the tree line about 50 yards out with a clear radio channel. At exactly 7 a.m., a black Mercedes pulled into the parking lot. Richard Whitmore himself stepped out, flanked by two men in expensive suits who screamed private security. Whitmore was older than his website photo suggested, with graying hair and the soft look of someone who'd spent more time behind a desk than anywhere that required physical courage. He approached with his hands visible, playing the reasonable businessman. Mr. Rodriguez. Thank you for coming. Let's skip the pleasantries. Where's my dog? Rex is safe and well cared for, I assure you. Whitmore's smile was practiced, probably the same one he used on juries. But before we discuss his future, we need to address your recent activities. What activities would those be? Breaking into courthouse records. Harassing public officials. Conducting illegal surveillance. He gestured to his security detail. My clients are concerned about your mental stability. A veteran with documented PTSD, behaving erratically, making threats. The setup crystallized in my mind. They were building a case to have me committed or arrested, probably both. Interesting theory. Got any proof? More than enough. Whitmore pulled out an iPad, swiped to a video file. Security footage of you photographing confidential documents at the courthouse. Audio recordings of you making threatening phone calls. Witness statements about your unstable behavior. I watched myself on a small screen, apparently filmed through a telephoto lens. The footage was real, but edited, my documentation gathering made to look like criminal surveillance, normal conversations clipped to sound like threats. Professional work, I admitted. Must have cost a fortune. Consider it an investment in public safety. Whitmore's smile turned predatory. Here's what's going to happen, Mr. Rodriguez. You're going to stop this investigation immediately. Delete any files you've collected, convince your military friends to drop their inquiries, and accept that Rex has found a better home. And if I refuse? Then tomorrow morning, the police will receive an anonymous tip about a mentally unstable veteran making terroristic threats against a prominent legal family. Your apartment will be searched, and I guarantee they'll find evidence of your disturbing obsession. Your VA benefits will be suspended pending psychological evaluation. Your military record will be flagged for review. The beauty of it was sickening. They'd use my PTSD, the very condition that made Rex necessary, as a weapon to destroy my credibility. Who would believe a mentally unstable veteran over a respected lawyer? You're forgetting something, I said quietly. What's that? I'm not the scared, broken soldier you think I am. I pulled out my own phone, showed him the recording app that had been running the entire conversation. I'm a highly trained professional who just got you confessing to blackmail, fraud, and conspiracy on tape. Whitmore's face went pale. You can't. Delete the recording. Like you deleted courthouse files. I pocketed the phone. Here's my counteroffer. You return Rex to me by tomorrow night, along with all forged paperwork and evidence of your little service dog theft operation. In exchange, I might consider not forwarding this recording to the FBI's Public Corruption Unit. One of Whitmore's security guards shifted closer, hand moving toward his jacket. Danny's voice crackled through my earpiece. 2 more vehicles incoming, east parking lot. This is about to get messy. Walk away now, Mr. Rodriguez. Whitmore had recovered his composure, but sweat beaded on his forehead. Rex isn't the only thing you can lose. We know about your job interviews next week, your VA appointments, your sister's teaching position in Maryland. It would be unfortunate if complications arose in any of those areas. They'd been watching my family too. The rage that had been building for days finally crystallized into something cold and focused. These people had made the critical error of threatening everything I had left to lose. You're absolutely right, I said, backing toward my car. It would be very unfortunate. For you. As I drove away, Danny's voice came through clearly. 6 men total, 3 vehicles. They're following at a distance but staying back. Want me to interfere? Negative. Let them follow. I was already planning my next 3 moves. Time to show them what happens when you declare war on someone who has nothing left to lose. The recording of Whitmore's threats was already uploading to Jake's secure server before I'd even left the park. Within an hour of leaving the park, everything went to hell. First, my bank called. Mr. Rodriguez, we've received a court order to freeze your accounts pending an investigation into suspicious financial activity. What suspicious activity? I'm not at liberty to discuss the details, but the order came from Judge Patricia Morrison's office. You'll need to contact the court directly to resolve this matter. Jake's corrupt cousin, moving faster than I'd anticipated. Without access to my accounts, I couldn't pay rent, buy food, or hire the private investigator I'd been planning to bring on board. They were cutting off my resources, forcing me into a corner. My phone rang immediately after the bank hung up. Sarah's number, the first time she'd called since blocking me months ago. Marcus? Her voice was shaky, scared. We need to talk. Now you want to talk. After stealing my dog and having your daddy threaten me? That's just it, I didn't know. I swear to God, I thought you'd abandoned Rex when you deployed. My father showed me paperwork saying the ownership had never been finalized, that he was going to be put down if we didn't take him. She was crying now, words tumbling over each other. But I found the real documents in my dad's office safe. The ones that prove Rex belongs to you. I pulled over, heart hammering. Where are you calling from? A gas station payphone in Delaware. I'm driving to my sister's place in Baltimore. Marcus, I took Rex with me. He's safe, but my father, he's not the man I thought he was. What do you mean? There are files, Marcus. Dozens of them. Service dogs, therapy animals, even some regular pets from wealthy families. They steal them through legal manipulation, then sell them to private buyers for tens of thousands of dollars. Rex was supposed to go to some tech executive in Silicon Valley next week. My vision went red around the edges. They weren't just stealing support animals, they were trafficking them like merchandise. Sarah, I need those files. I have copies of everything. But Marcus, they know I took Rex. My father's been calling non-stop, and there were 2 black SUVs parked outside my apartment when I left. They're looking for both of us. Send me your sister's address. I'll come get Rex. No. The panic in her voice was real. They'll be watching for you. I saw what they did to that other veteran, the one who tried to fight back last year. They had him committed to a psych ward, said he was having a breakdown. He's still there. Another veteran. Another stolen service animal. Another life destroyed by the Whitmore operation. Sarah, listen to me carefully. I need you to scan those files and send them to an encrypted email address. Can you do that? Yes, but what about Rex? He keeps looking for you. He won't eat, barely sleeps. I think he's depressed. The image of Rex waiting for me, confused and scared, nearly broke my resolve. But Sarah was right, if I went after him now, I'd be walking into a trap that would end with both of us disappearing into the system. Keep him safe for now. I'm going to end this, but I need ammunition first. After Sarah hung up, I sat in my car trying to process everything. They'd escalated beyond simple intimidation, freezing my accounts was a declaration of total war. But Sarah's defection gave me something invaluable, an inside source and documented proof of their operation. My phone buzzed with a text from Jake, bad news. My cousin Patricia issued a mental health warrant for your arrest. They're claiming you're a danger to yourself and others. Every cop in the county has your photo. I looked in my rearview mirror and spotted the black sedan that had been following me since the park. They weren't even trying to be subtle anymore. Time to disappear completely and fight this war from the shadows. I ditched my car at a mall parking garage and went full ghost protocol. 3 years of urban warfare training kicked in as I navigated through service corridors and maintenance tunnels, emerging 6 blocks away with a stolen maintenance worker's jacket and clipboard. In this city, nobody looks twice at a guy in work clothes carrying official-looking paperwork. My first stop was an internet cafe in a college district, cash only, no cameras, frequented by students who minded their own business. Sarah's file started downloading to Jake's encrypted server within minutes, and what I saw made my stomach turn. 17 service animals stolen over 2 years. Not just dogs, there were therapy horses, psychiatric service cats, even a seizure alert parrot. Each case followed the same pattern: target a vulnerable owner, forge documentation through Judge Morrison's office, then sell the animal to wealthy buyers who didn't ask questions about provenance. The price list was attached to the back of the files. Rex had been valued at $45,000 due to his specialized PTSD training and German Shepherd bloodline. The Silicon Valley buyer had already wired a deposit. But the worst discovery was buried in the financial records. 3 veterans who'd fought the thefts had ended up in psychiatric facilities after mental health episodes. One was still committed after 18 months. Another had died by apparent suicide while institutionalized, except his military records showed no history of suicidal ideation. They weren't just stealing animals. They were systematically destroying anyone who tried to stop them. My burner phone rang. Jake's voice was tight with stress. Marcus, you need to see the news. Channel 7, right now. I found a TV in the cafe's corner. The breaking news banner read, dangerous veteran sought in courthouse break-in. My military photo filled the screen while a reporter's voice detailed my history of violent episodes and documented mental instability. Rodriguez is considered armed and extremely dangerous. Police advise citizens not to approach him if spotted. He's wanted in connection with several break-ins and has made threats against local officials. Richard Whitmore appeared on screen, playing the concerned citizen perfectly. We're just grateful no one was hurt during his break-in at our offices last night. This young man clearly needs help, and we hope he gets the mental health treatment he requires. Break-in. I'd never been within 5 miles of their offices. But as the report continued, security footage showed someone in dark clothing jimmying the lock on Whitmore and Associates' back door. The figure was my height, my build, wearing clothes identical to what I'd had on at the park meeting. They'd staged the whole thing while I was at the internet cafe. Jake, I whispered into the phone. They're framing me. Gets worse, brother. I just intercepted police radio chatter. They've got SWAT positioning around your apartment building. Full tactical deployment for a mentally unstable suspect. Through the cafe window, I spotted 2 patrol cars cruising slowly down the street. The net was closing fast, but something felt wrong about the timing. Why go public with the manhunt before they'd secured the evidence Sarah had stolen? My question got answered when my burner rang again. This time it was Sarah, sobbing. Marcus, they took him. They took Rex. What happened? 2 men broke into my sister's house an hour ago. They knew exactly where we were, what room Rex was in. They had tranquilizer guns, professional equipment. Her voice cracked. My sister tried to stop them, and they hurt her, Marcus. She's in the hospital. The rage that filled me was beyond anything I'd experienced in combat. How bad? Broken ribs, concussion. The doctors say she'll recover, but... Sarah's breathing was ragged with panic. They left a message. Rex dies unless I return all the files and confirm that you're mentally unstable. They want me to testify that you threatened to kill me. I closed my eyes, calculating rapidly. The public manhunt wasn't about catching me, it was about forcing Sarah to choose between saving Rex and exposing their operation. They knew she'd see me as her victim instead of their enemy. That maternal instinct toward the dog would override everything else. Don't do it, Sarah. Once you give them what they want, both you and Rex become liabilities. But if I don't, they'll kill Rex anyway, then probably you and your sister for knowing too much. I was already moving toward the cafe's back exit. How long did they give you to decide? Until midnight. Marcus, I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. I checked my watch. 3 p.m. 9 hours to find Rex before they eliminated him and Sarah to tie up loose ends. The TV news was replaying my photo when I slipped out the cafe's rear entrance. Every cop in the county was looking for me, my accounts were frozen, and the people I cared about were being used as leverage against me. But they'd made one critical mistake in their psychological warfare. They'd shown me exactly how far they were willing to go to protect their operation, which meant I no longer had to hold back on my response. Time to remind some lawyers what total warfare actually looked like. The abandoned warehouse district east of downtown was perfect for what I had planned. Industrial buildings scheduled for demolition, minimal security presence, and most importantly, cell towers Jake could hack without triggering federal monitoring systems. I'd been moving through the shadows for 6 hours, using every urban warfare technique the army had drilled into me. The police manhunt was massive but sloppy. They were searching for a desperate, mentally unstable veteran, not a trained operator with a specific mission profile. My burner phone buzzed with an encrypted text from Jake, * package delivered to coordinates. Gift wrapped as requested, *. The package was a modified laptop loaded with military-grade surveillance software and connected to a cellular signal booster. Jake had positioned it on the roof of a building with clear sightlines to the Whitmore law offices. If they were holding Rex somewhere in the network of properties, the laptop would intercept any communications about moving him. While I waited for intelligence, I made a call to Sergeant Major Williams at the Pentagon. Marcus, thank Christ you're alive. The news is making you sound like some kind of domestic terrorist. Pat, I need you to know, everything they're saying is fabricated. I'm being framed because I uncovered a dog trafficking operation that involved stolen service animals and judicial corruption. I figured as much. A real terrorist wouldn't call his former CO to chat. Her voice carried that familiar edge of command authority. What do you need? Time. The IG investigation will take weeks to get rolling, but they're planning to kill Rex and probably several witnesses by midnight tonight. Jesus. Okay, I can maybe slow down the manhunt through back channels, but Marcus, if you're planning what I think you're planning, be very careful. The political fallout if this goes sideways. Understood, Pat. If this fails, you never heard from me. My next call was to Danny Reeves. I need to borrow some equipment from your private security stash. Non-lethal stuff, but professional grade. Marcus, every cop in the state is looking for you. If I help and this goes bad. Danny, they're not just stealing service animals. They're targeting veterans specifically, destroying the one thing keeping us functional. How many guys like us are walking around without their therapy dogs because of these people? The silence stretched long enough that I thought he'd hung up. Then, storage unit 247 at U-Store on Industrial Boulevard. Combination is your old apartment number. Take whatever you need, but for Christ's sake, don't get yourself killed. The storage unit was a treasure trove of surveillance gear, tactical equipment, and communication devices. I loaded a backpack with night vision goggles, a directional microphone, zip tie restraints, and a small drone with thermal imaging capability. Nothing lethal, I wasn't trying to hurt anyone, just level the playing field. Jake's voice crackled through my earpiece as I finished gearing up. Got movement at the Whitmore offices. 3 black SUVs just pulled up, and they're loading equipment into the vehicles. Looks like they're relocating operations. Can you track them? Already hacked the traffic camera network. They're heading toward the industrial district, about 2 miles from your current position. My heart rate spiked. They were bringing Rex to my neighborhood, probably to a more secure location where they could eliminate him without witnesses. But it also meant they'd be operating on unfamiliar ground while I had home field advantage. Jake, I need building schematics for every warehouse in a 3-block radius. Send them to the tactical display. On it. Marcus, thermal imaging shows at least 8 heat signatures in those vehicles. You're outnumbered 4-1. I've had worse odds. I was already moving through the maze of abandoned buildings, using the drone to scout ahead. Besides, they're lawyers and hired muscle. I'm a trained professional with nothing left to lose. The convoy stopped at a converted warehouse that had been used for illegal gambling operations until the city shut it down last year. Perfect location for their purposes, soundproof, isolated, and already equipped with security measures to keep people out. Through my night vision scope, I watched them unload Rex from the middle SUV. Even at 200 yards, I could see he was drugged, barely conscious, legs unsteady. The sight of my partner in that condition triggered something primal and dangerous in my brain. My earpiece crackled with Jake's voice. Marcus, I'm picking up radio chatter. They've got Sarah's sister under surveillance at the hospital. If Sarah doesn't call in the next hour to confirm she's destroying the files, they're going to finish what they started. 2 innocent women and my therapy dog, all being used as leverage to protect a criminal operation that had probably destroyed dozens of veterans' lives. The old Marcus might have tried to find a peaceful solution, negotiate some kind of deal. But that Marcus had never been pushed this far into a corner. I activated the tactical radio and switched to the frequency Danny had given me. Overwatch, this is Ghost Actual. Beginning approach on target building. 8 hostiles confirmed, high-value asset located. Danny's voice came back immediately. Ghost Actual, Overwatch is in position. You have clear fields of fire on all exits. What's your play? I studied the building through my scope, counting guards and identifying weak points in their security perimeter. They'd positioned themselves like they were expecting a frontal assault from local police, not a surgical strike from someone with advanced tactical training. Overwatch, I'm going to remind these people why you don't declare war on United States veterans. The warehouse had been quiet for 20 minutes when I began my approach. Time to bring my dog home. The thermal drone revealed 8 heat signatures inside the warehouse, clustered in 3 distinct groups. 2 guards at the main entrance, 3 more in what looked like an office area, 2 positioned near the back exit, and 1 isolated signature in the center of the building, probably with Rex. I'd been studying their patrol patterns for 30 minutes when my earpiece crackled with Jake's voice. "Marcus, we've got a problem. I'm intercepting police radio traffic. Someone called in shots fired at your location." "That's impossible. I haven't fired anything." "I know that, but 20 patrol units are en route to your position. ETA 12 minutes. Jake's typing was frantic in the background. "It's a setup, brother. They're forcing a confrontation with law enforcement while you're armed and surrounded by evidence of their operation." The brilliance of it hit me like a freight train. When the police arrived, they'd find a mentally unstable veteran conducting an armed assault on a legitimate business. Any evidence of the dog trafficking operation would disappear in the chaos, and I'd either end up dead or permanently discredited. "Danny, did you copy that?" "Roger, Ghost Actual. I've got eyes on 2 news vans positioning on the outer perimeter. They're broadcasting this live." Danny's voice carried a grim understanding. "They're not just framing you, they're making it a public spectacle." Through my night vision scope, I watched one of the guards inside the warehouse speaking rapidly into a radio. He was smiling, probably updating his bosses on how perfectly their trap was developing. But they'd made a critical miscalculation. They expected me to either abort the mission or get caught in their web of manufactured evidence. They never considered a third option. "Overwatch, change of mission parameters. We're not extracting the asset, we're exposing the entire operation on live television." I pulled out the modified smartphone Jake had given me and activated the streaming app connected to his secure servers. Within seconds, I was broadcasting live video to a network that included every major veterans advocacy group, military legal assistance office, and investigative journalist Jake had contacts with. "My name is Marcus Rodriguez, United States Army veteran." I spoke quietly into the phone's microphone while keeping the camera focused on the warehouse. "For the past week, I've been investigating the theft of my certified therapy dog by a criminal organization that specifically targets veterans service animals." The first police sirens were audible in the distance now, maybe 8 minutes out. I had to move fast. "What you're about to see is the rescue of my stolen dog from people who've been running a systematic operation to steal and sell therapy animals while using corrupt judicial contacts to destroy anyone who tries to stop them." I pocketed the phone but kept it streaming as I moved toward the warehouse's loading dock. The building's age worked in my favor. Decades of industrial use had left plenty of entry points that weren't being monitored. My earpiece buzzed with Danny's voice. "Ghost Actual, you've got incoming." Black sedan approaching from the east, 2 occupants. Through my scope, I watched Richard Whitmore himself step out of the sedan, accompanied by a younger man in an expensive suit. Whitmore was carrying a briefcase and looked remarkably calm for someone whose operation was about to be exposed on live television. "Jake, are you getting audio on that streaming feed?" "Crystal clear, and it's already being picked up by 3 news networks. You've got about 2,000 viewers and climbing fast." Whitmore approached the warehouse's main entrance, and I adjusted my position to get a clear view of the confrontation I knew was coming. He spoke briefly with the guards, then disappeared inside the building. 2 minutes later, a sound that made my blood run cold echoed through the night air, Rex barking in distress. Not his normal bark, but the high-pitched yelping that meant he was in pain or terrified. "Danny, they're hurting him." "I hear it, Marcus. But those sirens are getting closer. Maybe 4 minutes until the cavalry arrives." The smart play was to wait for law enforcement, let them sort out the situation while my streaming video provided evidence of everything that happened. But Rex's distressed barking was triggering every protective instinct the military had drilled into me. "Overwatch, I'm going in. If this goes sideways, make sure that video gets to Sergeant Major Williams at the Pentagon." "Marcus, don't." I switched off the radio and moved toward the loading dock, every sense hyperalert. The streaming phone captured everything as I approached the building where my partner was being held. Through a grimy window, I could see into the warehouse's main floor. Rex was in a makeshift cage in the center of the space, and Richard Whitmore was standing next to it with what looked like a veterinary syringe in his hand. They weren't just planning to kill him, they were going to make it look like a medical procedure, probably claimed he was being euthanized for aggressive behavior when the police arrived. The loading dock door was secured with a chain, but the lock was old and corroded. 2 minutes with Danny's lock-picking tools, and I was inside the building. The warehouse smelled of rust, motor oil, and something else, the antiseptic scent of veterinary supplies. They'd turned this place into a processing center for stolen animals, complete with medical equipment and holding cages. Rex's barking intensified when he caught my scent, but the sound was wrong, drugged, disoriented. Whatever they'd given him was affecting his coordination and cognitive function. "Easy, boy," I whispered, staying in the shadows along the warehouse's eastern wall. "I'm here. We're going home." Whitmore's voice carried clearly across the space, 30 seconds until police arrival. "Administer the injection now, then position him near the entrance. When they find Rodriguez's body, they'll assume he was trying to steal a dangerous animal that had to be put down for public safety." My body. They weren't just planning to frame me, they intended to make sure I didn't survive to tell the story. The streaming phone was still broadcasting everything, and I could only hope Jake was recording audio clearly enough to capture Whitmore's admission of premeditated murder. I had maybe 90 seconds before the police stormed the building, 60 seconds before they killed Rex, and no backup except Danny's Overwatch position outside. Time to find out if 3 years of urban warfare training was enough to take on 8 criminals, corrupt lawyers, and a system designed to destroy veterans who fought back. I checked my equipment one final time and began moving through the shadows toward the center of the warehouse. Rex was depending on me, and I'd already failed him once. Not again. The first guard went down silently, a sleeper hold Danny had taught me during our late-night PTSD sessions when we practiced combat drills to burn off nervous energy. I dragged his unconscious body behind a stack of shipping pallets and relieved him of his radio and zip-tie restraints. "Unit 2, report status," crackled through the stolen radio. I keyed the mic, disguising my voice as a harsh whisper. "All clear on the perimeter sweep. Moving to secondary position." "Copy that. Police ETA 90 seconds. Prepare for final phase." Final phase. The injection Whitmore was preparing for Rex, and whatever they had planned for my arrival. Through the streaming phone's camera, I watched the veterinarian, if that's what he actually was, approaching Rex's cage with the syringe. Rex saw him coming and tried to back away, but the drugs made his movement sluggish. The sound he made wasn't quite a whimper, wasn't quite a growl, it was the sound of betrayal, confusion. He'd been trained to trust humans, and they were using that trust to kill him. I was 15 feet from the cage when everything went sideways. Ghost actual, abort mission now. Danny's voice exploded through my earpiece. I've got snipers positioning on the roof across the street. This isn't a police response, it's a fucking execution squad. Through the warehouse's dirty skylights, I could see the telltale glint of scoped rifles. Professional positioning, military-grade equipment. These weren't cops responding to a disturbance call, they were contractors, probably the same team that had tried to run Jake off the highway. My streaming phone buzzed with an incoming text from Jake, *, feed just got cut. Someone's jamming cellular signals in your area. You're going dark in 30 seconds. *. The brilliance of their trap was becoming clear. Cut my communications, position snipers to eliminate me during the rescue operation, then control the narrative completely. By morning, the news would report that a mentally unstable veteran had been killed while attempting to steal a dangerous animal, with Richard Whitmore playing the traumatized victim. 20 seconds to police arrival, Whitmore announced to his team. Remember, Rodriguez fired first, we were defending ourselves. The animal was aggressive and had to be put down for public safety. The veterinarian raised the syringe toward Rex's neck. My partner looked directly at me through the cage bars, and I saw recognition flicker in his drugged eyes. His tail attempted a weak wag, he knew I'd come for him. I couldn't reach the cage before the injection. The snipers outside had kill shots on anyone who moved into the open center of the warehouse. And in 15 seconds, the police would storm in to find exactly the scene Whitmore had orchestrated. But they'd forgotten something crucial about military training, we don't just learn to fight. We learn to think 3 moves ahead of the enemy. I pulled out the smoke grenades Danny had included in his equipment stash and smiled grimly. If they wanted a spectacle, I'd give them one they'd never forget. The first grenade landed directly between Whitmore and the cage. The second hit the main electrical panel, and the third rolled toward the front entrance just as the police battering ram hit the door. Dense white smoke filled the warehouse within seconds, turning visibility to 0 and triggering every fire alarm in the building. Emergency lights flickered on, casting everything in hellish red shadows. What the hell? Whitmore's voice was cut off by violent coughing. In the chaos, I heard the cage door's electronic lock disengaging, apparently connected to the same electrical system I just sabotaged. Rex's confused barking echoed through the smoke as he stumbled out of his prison. Rex. Here, boy. Come to me. But instead of police voices, I heard something that made my blood freeze. All units, weapons free. Take down any targets you encounter. These definitely weren't cops. And we were trapped in a building with professional killers who'd just been given permission to shoot anything that moved. The smoke was so thick I couldn't see my own hands, but I could hear Rex stumbling through the chaos, his drugged movements echoing off concrete walls. The electronic lock failure had freed him, but in his disoriented state, he was as likely to run toward danger as away from it. Thermal imaging online, a voice called through the smoke. Military terminology, professional equipment. These weren't Whitmore's regular security guards. I activated my own night vision goggles, switching to thermal mode. 8 heat signatures spread throughout the warehouse, moving with tactical precision. But there was something wrong with their formation, too aggressive, too willing to fire in a building that was supposed to contain police officers. Rex, stay low, I whispered, spotting his heat signature near a stack of shipping containers. He was moving erratically, the drugs making his usually precise movements clumsy and unpredictable. My earpiece crackled with static, then Danny's voice broke through. Marcus, those aren't cops outside. Real police are being held at a checkpoint 3 blocks out, some kind of gas leak evacuation. You're dealing with private contractors. The setup was even more elaborate than I'd realized. They'd created a dead zone around the warehouse, isolated it from legitimate law enforcement, then sent in a cleanup crew to eliminate all witnesses. By the time real police arrived, they'd find nothing but bodies and whatever evidence Whitmore wanted them to find. A muzzle flash erupted through the smoke 15 feet to my left, followed by the distinctive crack of a suppressed rifle. Someone was shooting at shadows, hoping to get lucky. Movement in Sector 3, a voice called. Target acquired. I rolled behind a concrete pillar just as bullets chewed into the floor where I'd been crouching. Professional marksman, but firing blind through thermal imaging. The smoke was working in my favor, but it wouldn't last much longer. Rex's panicked barking echoed from somewhere near the warehouse's rear exit. He was trying to find a way out, but his impaired state made him an easy target for anyone with thermal imaging. Jake, are you still monitoring? I whispered into my radio. Barely. They're jamming everything except military frequencies. His voice was breaking up with static. Marcus, I intercepted communication between the shooters and their handler. They have orders to make this look like a PTSD episode gone wrong. Veteran shoots service dog, then gets taken down while resisting arrest. The narrative was already written. Tomorrow's headlines would blame a mentally unstable veteran for a tragic incident, with Richard Whitmore as the innocent victim who tried to help. The dog trafficking operation would disappear completely, protected by the story of one disturbed soldier's violent breakdown. But they'd made a critical error in their planning. They assumed I'd try to escape with Rex, making us both easy targets as we fled toward the exits. Instead, I was moving deeper into the warehouse, toward the office area where Whitmore had taken cover. The thermal scope showed 2 heat signatures huddled behind an overturned desk, Whitmore and probably the fake veterinarian. They were counting on their hired guns to clean up the situation while they waited safely out of the line of fire. Sir, we can't locate the primary target, one of the contractors reported. Smoke is interfering with thermal acquisition. Find him, Whitmore's voice carried through the haze. And put that animal down before it becomes a problem. That animal. Like Rex was just another piece of evidence to be eliminated. The rage that filled me was beyond anything I'd experienced in 3 tours of combat. These people had stolen my partner, drugged him, terrorized innocent civilians, and now they were planning to execute both of us to cover their crimes. I pulled out my last smoke grenade, but instead of throwing it, I began unscrewing the top. Danny's equipment had included more than just standard military supplies. He'd packed some creative modifications that weren't exactly legal for civilian use. Time to show these contractors the difference between hired muscle and a United States Army veteran who'd run out of patience. The modified grenade hit the floor near Whitmore's position and began releasing something far more potent than simple smoke. In 30 seconds, everyone in that building was going to understand exactly why you don't threaten a soldier's partner. The modified grenade released a concentrated irritant that made tear gas seem like a gentle breeze. Within seconds, violent coughing echoed through the warehouse as the contractors' disciplined formation dissolved into chaos. Gas. Gas. Fall back to perimeter, someone shouted, but their retreat was exactly what I'd been counting on. In the confusion, I spotted Rex's heat signature stumbling toward the loading dock where I'd entered. The drugs were wearing off enough for his military training to kick in. He was seeking the nearest exit, just like I taught him during our early bonding exercises. "That's my boy," I whispered, moving parallel to his path while staying behind cover. But Whitmore's voice cut through the chaos with desperate authority. 50,000 bonus to whoever drops Rodriguez in the next 60 seconds. Money changed everything. The contractors stopped retreating and began converging on my position with renewed aggression. Professional discipline gave way to greed-fueled recklessness. Movement, northwest corner. A figure in tactical gear rounded the shipping container where I'd taken cover, rifle raised. But months of PTSD hypervigilance had trained me to hear footsteps that others would miss. I was already moving when he appeared. The zip tie restraints went around his wrists before he could key his radio. Another contractor down, another weapon acquired. But his comm unit crackled with increasingly urgent chatter. "Unit 4 is down. Repeat, Unit 4 is not responding. I've got eyes on the target. Northwest section, moving toward." A massive crash interrupted the transmission. Rex had knocked over a stack of metal shelving in his drugged stumbling, creating a domino effect that sent equipment crashing throughout the rear section of the warehouse. "Forget the dog." Whitmore screamed. "Focus on Rodriguez." But Rex's chaos was working in our favor. The falling debris had created new cover positions while making thermal imaging nearly useless. Heat signatures bounced off twisted metal and scattered equipment, turning the warehouse into a maze of false readings. My phone buzzed with an encrypted text from Jake, *, real police breach in 3 minutes. Contractors know it, they're switching to extraction mode. *. Extraction mode meant eliminating all evidence, including witnesses. The game was changing from capture or kill to scorched earth. "All units, prepare thermite charges," came through my stolen radio. "We're sanitizing the entire site." Thermite. Military-grade incendiary devices that would turn the warehouse into an inferno hot enough to destroy DNA evidence. They weren't just planning to kill us, they were going to erase our existence completely. Through my thermal scope, I watched 2 contractors moving toward predetermined positions around the building's support columns. They had maybe 90 seconds to plant charges before real police arrived, but that was more than enough time to turn the warehouse into a crematorium. Rex's barking had changed pitch. He'd found the loading dock exit but couldn't figure out how to operate the electronic door mechanism. The drugs were still affecting his coordination, making simple tasks impossible. I was 20 feet away from him when my thermal imaging picked up the sniper on the roof across the street. The angle was perfect. He had a clear shot through the loading dock opening, just waiting for either Rex or me to step into his crosshairs. "Overwatch, I need immediate suppression on the roof position," I whispered into my radio. "Negative, Ghost Actual. I'm compromised." 2 contractors just breached my position. Danny's voice was strained with pain. They'd found his Overwatch position and neutralized my only backup. Now it was just me, a drugged therapy dog, and a building about to become our funeral pyre. The first thermite charge ignited somewhere behind me, sending white-hot sparks cascading through the smoky air. The temperature spiked instantly, and I could smell burning metal and concrete. Rex was trapped at the exit. I was surrounded by killers with incendiary weapons, and we had maybe 2 minutes before the building became uninhabitable. Time for one last desperate gambit. The second thermite charge erupted near the main entrance, and I realized their strategy was more sophisticated than simple destruction. They were creating a controlled burn pattern that would funnel Rex and me toward the rear exit, directly into the sniper's kill zone. But they'd underestimated my partner's training. "Rex, tunnel." I shouted over the chaos, using the command we'd practiced for navigating tight spaces during his service certification. Even drugged, his muscle memory responded. Instead of trying to escape through the loading dock, he dropped low and began crawling under the maze of fallen shelving toward my position. The sniper's angle became useless as Rex disappeared beneath the debris field. My stolen radio crackled. Charges 3 and 4 are armed. 60 seconds to full ignition. Through the smoke and sparks, I could see Whitmore and the fake veterinarian making their own escape through a side door I hadn't noticed earlier, probably a pre-planned exit route that led to their extraction vehicle. They were abandoning their hired contractors to clean up the mess while they disappeared into the night. "Jake, are you monitoring their escape route?" Static answered me. Whatever jamming equipment they were using had finally overwhelmed our communication systems completely. I was operating blind, with no backup, no intel, and a building that would be uninhabitable within minutes. Rex reached my position, panting heavily from the exertion and heat. His eyes were clearer now. The physical activity was helping metabolize whatever drugs they'd given him. When he looked at me, I saw recognition and something else, trust. Despite everything that had happened, he still trusted me to get us out of this. "Good boy," I whispered, checking him quickly for injuries. "Stay close. We're leaving together." The third thermite charge ignited somewhere above us, and burning debris began raining down from the warehouse's support structures. The contractors had positioned their incendiaries to create a progressive collapse. The building would fold in on itself, burying any evidence of what had happened here. But their escape plan had a flaw they couldn't have anticipated. The side door Whitmore had used was still slightly ajar, propped open by someone who'd been more concerned with speed than operational security. And my thermal imaging showed it led to a service corridor that connected to the adjacent building, a route that bypassed the sniper positions entirely. "Rex, follow," I commanded, moving toward the forgotten exit. My radio suddenly burst back to life with Jake's voice, "Marcus." Police are through the perimeter checkpoint. Real cops, not contractors. ETA 90 seconds, but those thermite charges are going to. The transmission cut off as the fourth incendiary device erupted, but I'd heard enough. Help was coming, but not fast enough to save us from the inferno. The service corridor was narrow and filled with smoke, but it was our only chance. Rex stayed pressed against my leg as we navigated through the maze of pipes and electrical conduits. His breathing was labored from the drugs and heat, but he was moving under his own power. Behind us, the warehouse was becoming an inferno. The thermite charges were creating temperatures hot enough to melt steel, exactly as the contractors had planned. In another few minutes, there would be nothing left but ash and twisted metal. We were halfway through the corridor when I heard voices ahead, two men discussing extraction procedures in a kind of calm, professional tones that meant private military contractors. Buildings compromised. We're switching to Plan C. What about the targets? Collateral damage. Command says the story stays the same, unstable veteran, tragic incident, case closed. They were between us and the exit, armed and prepared to eliminate witnesses. Rex sensed the danger and pressed closer to my leg, his training overriding the lingering effects of whatever they drugged him with. I checked my remaining equipment, 2 zip ties, 1 flashbang grenade, and a tactical knife. Not much against professional killers, but I'd worked with less in Afghanistan. The corridor was about to become a battleground, with my partner's life hanging in the balance. Time to find out if our bond was strong enough to survive one final test. The flashbang went off in the narrow corridor like the fist of God. In the split second of blindness and chaos that followed, Rex and I moved as one unit, pure muscle memory and 3 years of bonded training overriding everything else. The contractors stumbled backward, disoriented, and I was on them before their vision cleared. Zip ties secured their weapons while they were still shaking their heads. By the time they could see straight, they were looking down the barrel of their own rifle. Face down, hands behind your backs, I commanded, using the voice that had kept soldiers alive in combat zones. Rex positioned himself at the corridor entrance, blocking their escape route without any command from me. Even drugged and traumatized, he knew his job. The sound of sirens filled the air outside, real police this time, along with fire departments and what sounded like federal vehicles. Through my stolen radio, I caught fragments of urgent chatter. Building fully engulfed. Suspects in custody. Need medical for the veteran and his dog. Medical. They were treating us as victims, not perpetrators. Whatever Jake had managed to transmit before the communications blackout, it had been enough to change the narrative. 10 minutes later, I was sitting in the back of an ambulance with Rex's head in my lap while a paramedic checked his vitals. The warehouse behind us was a smoking ruin, but the service corridor had saved our lives. Emergency responders had found us with 2 contractors zip-tied and babbling about thermite charges and systematic evidence destruction. Your dog's going to be fine, the paramedic said, checking Rex's pupils with a small flashlight. Whatever they drugged him with is wearing off. His heart rate stabilizing. Rex's tail gave a weak thump when he heard the word, fine. He was still groggy, but his eyes were alert and focused on my face. 3 days of hell, and he was still looking to me for guidance. Sir. A woman in a federal jacket approached the ambulance. Agent Sarah Chin, FBI. We need to talk. The next 6 hours were a blur of debriefings, evidence review, and medical examinations. The streaming video Jake had broadcast before the signal cut had reached the right people. Sergeant Major Williams had personally called the FBI's domestic terrorism unit when she saw private contractors opening fire on a warehouse. But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Marcus. Sarah Whitmore stood in the hospital waiting room, looking like she hadn't slept in days. I brought something you need to see. The external hard drive contained everything, financial records, client lists, veterinary documentation, even video footage of stolen animals being processed for sale. Sarah had grabbed more than just Rex's files, she downloaded their entire operation. 17 service animals recovered so far, Agent Chin told me later. 3 more warehouses raided. Your girlfriend's testimony is going to put a lot of people away for a very long time. Ex-girlfriend, I corrected automatically. Whatever. She saved your case. Agent Chin smiled grimly. Judge Morrison tried to destroy evidence from her office, but we recovered the deleted files. Richard Whitmore's looking at federal trafficking charges, conspiracy, attempted murder, the works. 2 weeks later, I was back in my apartment with Rex sprawled across my feet while I filled out the paperwork to officially adopt the 3 therapy dogs whose original handlers had died by suicide while fighting the Whitmore operation. The VA was fast-tracking their placement with other veterans who needed partners. Rex lifted his head when someone knocked on the door. His hearing had been the first thing to fully recover after the drugs cleared his system. Jake stood in the hallway with a bottle of whiskey and a shit-eating grin. Thought we should celebrate, he said, holding up a newspaper with the headline, Federal Raid Exposes Military Service Dog Trafficking Ring. I looked down at Rex, who was watching both of us with a patient expression that meant he was deciding whether these were good people or potential threats. His tail gave a single, measured wag. Good people, then. Come on in, I said, stepping aside. Rex wants to hear how you hacked a federal investigation. Some battles you fight for survival. Others you fight for justice. But the best ones, the ones that actually matter, you fight for family.